Mao Zedong was born on December 26, 1893, and was raised in the village of Shaoshan in Henan. Mao lived with his mom and dad along with his three siblings. Mao's father, Miao Chang, was a former peasant who then eventually became one of the wealthiest farmers in Shaoshan. Growing up, Mao's father was abusive and would beat Mao and his siblings. Mao's mother, Wen Kemei, was a Buddhist and would try to temper his attitude. Mao took on his mother's faith as a Buddhist, but then eventually abandoned his faith in his teenage years. As Mao got older, he was working on his father's farm. Mao was huge into reading. Mao would always read political books, such as Political Consciousness, which would talk about the deterioration of Chinese power and argued for a change to a representative democracy. Mao was really inspired by history. He loved to learn about George Washington and Napoleon. When Mao was 8 years old, he was sent to Shashan Primary School.
There he learned about the value system of Confucianism, a system of philosophical and ethical teachings founded by Confucius and developed by Mencius. At 13 years old, he finished primary school. At age 16, Mao moved to a higher primary school in Dongsheng, where he was bullied for being a peasant. Mao began middle school in 1911, and Changsha Mak was inspired by Sun Yat-sen, an American educated Christian who led the Tongmenghui Society. He was influenced by his newspaper, The People's Independence, and wanted him to become a president in school. Over the next years, Mao dropped out of police academy, a soap production school, a law school, an economic school, and government-ran Changsha Middle School. He'd spent a lot of time studying himself, reading books about classical liberalism. In 1915, Mao was elected secretary of the Student Society. He organized an association for student self-government and led protests against school rules. Eventually, Mao graduated in June of 1919, being ranked third in the year.
His interest sparked by the May the 4th movement. This movement was an intellectual and reformist movement. It was initiated by university students who were angry with how China was in the hands of the Western powers after World War I. He became a founding member of the Chinese Communist Party. After consolidating his leadership during a long march, a year-long retreat from nationalist forces, Mao's rise to power was a result of his unique interpretation of Marxism, which focused on the revolutionary potential of the peasantry rather than the urban proletariat. His vision of a socialist China centered in eradicating feudalism, imperialism, and the remnants of Chinese traditional society. In 1949, after decades of civil war, Mao's leadership reached the top of the victory of the CCP over the nationalist Kuomintang, and he proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China. This marked the beginning of a new socialist era in which the CCP sought to overhaul every aspect of Chinese life. The Chinese Revolution. On October 1st, 1949, Mao declared the creation of the People's Republic of China. As a leader of the CCP, he adapted Marxist principles to the Chinese largely based society, emphasizing rural support over the urban workers. The revolution unfolded in several phases. Initially, the first united front between the CCP and the nationalist Kuomintang to fight imperialism, followed by the CCP's retreat during the Chinese Civil War. Mao's guerrilla tactics and a long march solidified his leadership in the CCP. From 1937 to 1945, Mao's forces gained popularity through resistance and social reforms from the KMT's corruption. After World War II, the civil war between the CCP and the KMT resumed, with Mao's leadership leading to victory. By the end of 1949, he declared the establishment of the People's Republic of China, which ended centuries of imperialism, feudalism, which declared the beginning of an era of communist rule. The Second United Front against Japan. The Second United Front was an alliance between the Chinese Communist Party and the Nationalist Forces between December 1936 to 1946. After the Shanghai Massacre, the CCP went into a state of retreat from Nationalist forces. They remained in conflict until about the mid-1930s, when Japan threatened an invasion on China. The Communist International in Moscow urged communist parties to form alliances with non-communist governments in order to fight fascism and militarism. The CCP began calling for national unity against Japanese aggression. While these alliances helped defeat Japan, they both returned to Chinese Civil War. China under Mao Zedong, land reforms. A big land reform by Mao Zedong was the agrarian reform. For thousands of years, Chinese people survived by farming. Mao Zedong was convinced that China's peasants would be at the center of the communist revolution that delivered them from feudalism. Under Mao's direction, the Chinese Communist Party developed the program of agrarian reforms. The Agrarian Reform Law was one of the Communist Republic's first major policies. Its overall goal was fair distribution of land outcome achieved by seizing land and distributing it back to landless peasants. The land reform would also be one of the first steps in China's march toward industrialization. The CCP's land reform program involved turning China's traditional social system and land ownership back to normal. Economic and social impact. The first five-year plan. When the Chinese Communist Party took control of China in 1949, the economy was not developed and lacked heavy industry, mining, steel production, manufacturing, and infrastructure. After the Korean War, Mao and the CCP decided to prioritize economic development. The first five-year plan under Mao Zedong focused on transforming China's predominantly agrarian economy into an industrialization socialist state. Modeled after Soviet-style central planning, the plan emphasized rapid industrial growth, particularly in heavy industries such as steel, coal, and machinery. It aimed to increase production in both agriculture and industry, with large investments in the infrastructure and the collectivization of farming. To achieve this, Mao's government prioritized the construction of state-owned factories and the expansion of the national economy through centralized control. While industrial output did rise, the plan also faced challenges including inefficiency, over-reporting of production figures, and a failure to address the needs of rural areas. The first five-year plan laid the groundwork for China's industrialization. Despite the social and economic struggles it caused for many peasants. Foreign policy. Under Mao, China's foreign policy was driven by a combination of revolutionary ideology and pragmatic concerns. Mao sought to position China as a leader of global communism and a champion of anti-imperialist movements in the developing world. Initially aligned with the Soviet Union, relations soared during the Sino-Soviet split in the late 1950s, leading China to pursue an independent path in the Cold War. Mao emphasized self-reliance and sought to challenge both U.S. and the Soviet influence globally. His policies supported revolutionary movements abroad while maintaining a focus on safeguarding China's sovereignty and security, marked by a cautious approach to direct military engagement. Mao's impact. At the end of the day, Mao passed away from a series of heart attacks. China's government saw a power struggle within the Communist Party. His death brought an end to the Cultural Revolution, which was a period of social and political trouble that caused widespread suffering. While his legacy remained influential, the focus of the country moved towards modernization, economic development, and greater integration to a global economy. The death of Mao set the stage for China's transformation from isolated nation to a global economic power.